Yeah, it still says preparing. Okay, now it says live on Facebook.
Okay, it's on. Okay. All right. So I think I'll lower this one. Is it live? I can't tell.
It says live on Facebook on here.
Okay, there we are. Hey guys, it's Deena. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on flynubianqueen.com, the network for melanated women just like you. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Please like, please subscribe, and please share this podcast. Tonight, we're going to answer the question, we're going to explore the question, did childhood sexual abuse warp your view of sexuality? And I have a special guest here. It's my cousin, Kie. She's joining us. Say hi to everybody. Let's see how many people do we even... Thumbs up button, please like. There we go. Please subscribe and please share. Can you hear that echo? This podcast. Tonight we are going to we're going to answer the question. We're going to explore the question. Okay, hold on. Did childhood sexual abuse warp? Okay, so it looks like I'm going to have to do it this way because there's a bit of an echo and it's time delayed. So while we're still waiting for people to come in, it's only like one person here right now, but that's okay. We're still going to do this. Let me just go ahead and do some promotion since we're waiting for people to come in. If you guys haven't already, please go to Fly Nubian Queen Money and get your money up, learn how to manage your finances. If you have a business idea, you should go to Fly Nubian Queen Business. And we'd love to get some of your support. Get some of our gear at shopfnq.com. So let me get into this. This is a very deep topic. And my cousin and I, we just reconnected after not seeing each other since we were kids. I want to say we were like maybe preteens the last time we seen each other. And now decades later, we reconnected. And she was so open with me about just her journey over the past few years. It was so inspiring, so touching. It was sad at points. It was joyful at points. And I was getting so many emotions. I felt so elevated after hearing her story that I just knew like I got something out of it. And I didn't even have all the different backstory. I didn't have as many similarities in my backstory as I'm sure some other people out there joining us today have. So I was just kind of like, would you mind coming and sharing this story? Because it was so remarkable of what happened to her, what it caused her to go through, and how she was able to have like some aha moments, some wake up call moments. And she was able to push past the PTSD, the trauma, the negative feeling, the negative lifestyle that she had entered into, and kind of woman up and go on a different path. She chose a totally different path. I'm going to let her tell her story. But before we get into her story, just to make sure that we all are on the same page, you guys know how I am. I like to make sure that we know what we're talking about when we use certain words. So when I'm talking about childhood sexual trauma, I'm talking about sexual abuse. According to Psychology Today and Google, psychological trauma is a type of damage to the mind that occurs as a result of a distressing event. It is often the result of an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds one's ability to cope or integrate the emotions involved with that experience. Trauma itself is defined as deeply distressing or disturbing experience, emotional shock following a stressful event or a physical injury, which may be associated with physical shock and sometimes lead to long-term neurosis. Sexuality, I know we associate that term with so many different things nowadays, so I want to clarify that. When we are talking about sexuality here, we're talking about the capacity for sexual feelings, a person's sexual orientation or preference, and sexual activity. So it's not just about gay, straight, whatever. It's about just your capacity for sexual feelings, which then leads into your preferences and orientations and your activities. Abuse. As a verb, it's to obviously have a bad effect or for a bad purpose, to misuse something. In particular, a person or an animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. So in the context of this particular conversation, we're talking about trauma and abuse as related to sexual violence, sexual cruelty that has happened on a repeated basis regularly. And sometimes that may not be by the same person. In some instances, some of you may have experienced some sexual trauma or abuse from different situations, different people. And some of you may have had one person that was abusing you. So I just want to let you know that we are encompassing all of those things in this conversation. And I want people to feel comfortable. I want people to feel like they are going to be heard here. If I don't get to all of your questions and comments before the end of the night, please know that if you're really struggling with something, you should definitely seek help. This is just a forum to kind of open the door and let you guys know that there is a pathway out, because she is on that journey currently, and she's going to give you some insight into how she is doing it. So without further ado, I'm going to let Kie get to her story. Hi, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Kie. I am 44. I am a mother of one, a 12-year-old. I'm just going to jump right into it. The abuse started at the age of 7, when I was 7, that I remember. And it was by my brother. It continued until I was the age of 12. When I was 8, I tried to change my identity, my anatomy. So I became, because I figured if I was a boy, this wouldn't happen to me. So I changed my identity. I became Mike. I started to dress like a boy, act like a boy. And I carried that into my teenage years. When I hit 16, that was the first time I was actually intimate with a female, under deception, because she thought I was a boy.
Can I
yes.
for 1 second? There was a piece of it that you talked about to me before that I think some people might get something from, where you were saying that when the abuse started, how did that affect you?
I was confused. I didn't understand why me. Why did he do this to me? I have another sister, another sibling, and he never did that to her. And he only did it to me. And I never understood why it was me, why he chose to do this to me for years.
How many years did it last?
I'm sorry?
How many years did it last?
From age 7 to 12.
Okay.
So
those are like some very formative years, especially going into puberty. And as you kind of expressed to me before, how did that affect your view of yourself as a young lady, a young girl?
Younger, my younger years before I hit teenage, I wanted to be invisible. I felt like when I told my mother, she couldn't understand. And now, at the age that I am, I understand why she didn't know, because I didn't know. So trying to express at the age of 8 what my brother was doing to me, because I couldn't use the word sex, I didn't know. She didn't understand what I was trying to say. So I felt that my screams weren't loud enough. So I stopped talking about it. And it became in my behavior. And that's when I started to change my identity. That's when I became Mike.
Can you go into that? Like when you were talking to me about it, one of the things that really struck me about your story is I've never heard someone describe how you began to shift into a masculine role, like how you begin to reject yourself, like the story with the little girl, the story about how you begin to see yourself, how you begin to shift into this alternate personality of Mike. It's almost like you had a schism in your personality and your spirit. So can you just talk about what that felt like? How did you go into that?
Well, I did not like being a woman. I did not like being a little girl because that meant touching me, having sex with me, and I didn't like that. So when I started to develop breast, I would duct tape them down so you couldn't see it. I began to talk with a very deep voice. Excuse me. I wore my father's clothes. I had all male friends. So I learned from my guy friends how to be a guy. I learned not to ever get feelings involved in any kind of sexual relationship. Just as a teenager, dating, not to get feelings involved. That sex was just sex. It wasn't anything intimate. It wasn't anything special. It was just doing it. So I learned and I trained myself to shut off my feelings. Go ahead.
So how did you view men? How did you reconcile that? Because you said you wanted to become a man, but it was a man who was abusing you, a male, your brother, who was abusing you. So how
I
did
could
you
have
reconcile
male
hanging out with men and
friends.
wanting to be like a man?
I could have male friends, but relationships, I turned that off. I trained myself to not have intimate feelings of a man, not to get aroused by a man. I shut that off. I trained myself to shut it off. So I was never into guys like that. I didn't want boyfriends. I didn't want my first kiss from a guy. I didn't want my little high school sweetheart to take my virginity. All those things that typical teenage girls want, think about, endure. That was not me. I wanted a girlfriend. I wanted the touch of a girl. I wanted my first kiss to be with a girl because in my mind, I was Mike. I was a boy. And I hated that I was a girl. I could ignore it up until my menstrual cycle. That's when I was remembered all over again that I was a female. And I hated it. I hated it. I felt so ugly as a woman, as a girl. I hated it. I did not want to be a girl. So this carried into my adolescent years. At the age of 20, I tried to get into a relationship with a guy, but I was very verbally and physically abusive to him. When I cheated on him, it was usually with females. And the day I decided to leave him, it was for a female. I didn't want the relationship anymore. I cared for him, but I could never really love him because there was a part of me that just was not happy with being with a man.
Can you expand on that? Why?
Because I still had to deal with being a woman. He seen a beautiful woman. I was still Mike in my mind.
Keith, something's coming up for me where I want you to, if you feel comfortable talking, to talk about what did it mean to you as a young girl being forced to be somebody's sexual object, essentially. What did that mean to you in relationship to being a girl? Like, how did that affect your relationship to your own femininity?
Well, one, I was confused because it was my brother. I was very confused. Um, I just never liked being a girl, a woman. He violated me to the point where he made me not even want to exist. I wish I was never even here. He stripped me of my innocence, stripped me of happiness. He distorted my mind because how he violated me, I felt like that's what sex was. You just give it up. You have no say so in it. My body was not private. I felt like I didn't have the yes or no to say who I was or was not going to have sex with. I just did it. So he really crushed, as a young child, my spirit. I was never the happy girl playing with the friends. I always tried to hide it. I always wondered if people knew. Could they tell the difference? And I wanted someone to just say something. I wanted someone to save me. I don't know how, but I just wanted to be saved. And no one did. So it just got worse as I got older.
So, do you think this is just, and again, guys, I am not a doctor. I am just a woman who reads and thinks about things in a certain way. So, I'm just coming from my own perspective. I want to give that disclaimer. Like, the things that I'm saying is just in conversation, questions that I have. But there's something that stands out to me where it seems that this Mike character was almost created as a form of this Mike personality was created almost as a form of protection for the little girl Key, who was not able to protect herself.
Yeah, Mike was my alter ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Mike was my alter ego because he was, to me, in my mind, the strong one, the one that wouldn't allow this to happen. From him or anybody else, I became very violent. I fought all the time. I became very outspoken. Mike was my alter ego.
And so I would say, she and I grew up together in the sense that we didn't see each other all the time, but we definitely spent some time together because my grandmother and her mother were very close. And so whenever me and my brother were at our grandma's house, we would walk over to their house. And I remember being afraid of you. And I told her this when we talked recently. I was like, girl, when we were kids, I was scared of you because you used to walk around like, with this, you were so mean. And I had no idea that you were
I
going.
was broken. I was
I had
hurt.
no idea that you were going through this. And now it all makes sense. But, as a kid, I was just like, why is she so mean? And you would walk around with this scowl, and even then you were kind of like a little bit tough. And I was just like, I'm gonna play with Natasha instead. I'm gonna play with my other little cousin, because Key, she looked like she about to knock the shit out of me, and I ain't even do nothing. So, not to make light of the situation, just to bring a little levity to such a heavy topic, but even then, now looking back, I can see that you were in protection mode.
Because nobody bothered Mike.
Yeah, I could totally
Everyone
see
was
that.
afraid of Mike.
Yeah. And it makes sense from a child's mind that you're calling, like you're screaming out for someone to help you. It's like a silent scream. And then this energy comes upon you with the idea of, here's a protection. Here's another energetic that can be brought in that will answer that call. And it is in the form of another identity, which is Mike.
Mhm.
So, is
Yep.
there anything else you want to say about that transition? Because I want to take you into some of the next phases where you started to get into the lifestyle and how you felt that lifestyle, just getting into the lifestyle and some of the things you talked about, the patterns that you recognized, and when you began to want to change.
Um, I was always hurt. It didn't matter how much I tried to change myself, how I tried to ignore what happened. I tried to forget it. I could not have a relationship with guys, my family. And then when my son came along, I couldn't have a relationship with him. That's what changed me, was when I had my son, and I decided, because I told you, what we discussed before, I felt like if I hugged him, I was molesting him. I felt like if I changed his diaper, I was doing something horrible. And he looked at me. He was an infant, probably about 2 months old. And he smiled at me, and it crushed me. And I cried. And, he was none the wiser. He was only 2 months old. And I cried, and I said, I am so sorry that I treated you like this. And I decided that I no longer wanted to be a victim anymore, that it was time to forgive my brother. It was time to forgive me for the damages that I've caused on other people, verbally, physically, sexually, emotionally. Um, it was time for me to love, and love my son the right way, because he did not deserve what I was feeling. And it was okay for me to be a mom, because I'm not my brother. I'm not a victim anymore. So I hugged him, and I would hug him for hours on end. I said, I am a mom, and a mother is supposed to change your baby's diaper. That's okay. I'm doing what a mother should do. So I began to call out to God, and I asked God to help me to retrain my brain, that all the things that I thought love was, uh, what sex was, to help me. And I started to realize that sex is precious, especially with someone you love. There's nothing wrong with intimacy. It is part of a relationship, that I have the right to say, no, it's my body, that my goodies is precious, and everybody can't get it. And I started to love my son, and then I started to love me. I had to forgive myself for feeling like there was something I could have done. I would beat myself down for years and say, why did you allow this to happen? Why didn't you do anything? And I had to realize I was only 7.
You were innocent.
There was nothing I could have done. I trusted someone who violated me, and it was so hard to come back from that. that he was my brother.
Talk to us about how you were able to, like, what was it like when you realized, okay, I got to change. I have this baby and he deserves to be loved. And now I got to love myself because I can't love him if I don't love myself. Talk about that journey. Tell me.
It was hard because, like I said, I constantly beat myself down. I blamed me. I would question, did you like it? I wondered, because I'm sorry.
What was your answer to that question?
Now, hell to the now. Then I didn't have an answer. I didn't know. The first time, you actually really have sex, it's usually your guy friend, whatever, girlfriend that you are head over heels and in love with, or you think you're in love. And I always wondered, did I love my brother in a way that I would love a boyfriend? Because he did take my virginity and my innocence. And I questioned myself, was there somewhere that I liked this? And I would beat myself down. And I realized I didn't. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. He destroyed my childhood. I had to really let God intervene and heal and mend my heart. Because my spirit was broken. My heart was broken. My mind, my thought process was broken. I couldn't see a relationship. I couldn't see sex the way you should because of that innocence being taken away at a young age. So I continue to ask God to help me. But I had to go to therapy. I went to counseling. And even though I voluntarily went, I still rejected it. And I sat there for 2 months and never said a word. And one day I went to counseling because I would go to every session. I just wouldn't say anything.
And were
I
you
was
there for this?
very, uh, yes, but no.
Okay.
I'd found different organizations that could help me because I was starting to fall into a deep depression. I was becoming, I didn't act on it, but I had suicidal thoughts.
Mm.
And I realized I had to get help because I did not like the person that I was becoming, because that's not me. So I found an organization that helped me with the counseling. And I never said anything. She never questioned my counselor. She never questioned me. She never said anything. For 2 months, I would go to every session for an hour and I would not say a word for 2 months. And then one day I went in there and I just cried and cried and I told her everything. So then she started giving me homework of self-motivation, encouragement, scriptures of healing. So that helped. But somewhere I was still not ready because it hit me too fast. You want to be healed from something, but when it starts to heal like your scab, when you get that sore and it's healing, you pick the scab.
Yeah.
And I kept picking at myself because I wanted to heal, but I didn't want to have to go. I didn't want to go through the process that it took to get there. I just wanted to be cured. whatever cured is. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be normal.
I
So, and we,
Give me 1 second. You know what I just realized? It went live on my homepage, and so everyone's hitting me up like, "Where's the video? Where's the video?" So give me 1 second to pause. In the meantime, if you guys haven't already, it's supposed to be on flynubianqueen.com. That's where I normally broadcast live. So I'm glad to see that there's so many of my personal friends and family members who have now joined into this live. It must be that somebody on my personal page needed to see this, because I believe that God works in mysterious ways sometimes and things pan out the way they're supposed to. But if you guys could just give us a second, we're going to try to just put the word out to a couple more people where the live is actually happening. And we're going to get back into this amazingly powerful story. If you haven't already, please like and share and subscribe to this page. Right now, you are on my personal page, which is Jakarta Artist on Facebook. But I also would love for you guys to go over to flynubianqueen.com on Facebook. And that's where I usually have at 7 p.m. on Sunday nights. That's 7 p.m. West Coast time, and then 10 p.m. East Coast time if you are back east, where all my peeps are. So we're going to get back into Keith's amazing story. If you could definitely continue to walk us through some of the steps that you took towards getting over, like, okay, some of the things that really stand out for me is you were around 7. Is that correct? When it happened?
yes,
That's
I
an
was
8
saying,
now in psychology, and I did study psychology. Now I didn't go all the way through, but I have a BA in psychology, so I'm not pulling this out of my booty, peeps. Around 7 is considered to be the age of understanding in psychology. So when something like this happens around that age where a child is coming to understand the world, that's when children gain an understanding. That's why it's called the age of understanding. They start to, oh, okay, mommy and daddy, and I go to school, and a sense of myself, and starting to understand how the world works. When you have a major trauma like happened with my cousin here, happen at that age, that becomes your understanding. And so, in order for a child, as you're beginning to make sense at that time of the world, it totally makes sense to me, listening to your story, how everything developed, how you begin to see yourself as a woman, as a female energy, as something bad because you were vulnerable, because you allowed something to happen to you that as a child you don't understand. That's out of your control. You think you had something to do with it, and then you're trying to tell adults, they're not catching on, they're not getting it for whatever reasons. So you're not being protected from the people who are supposed to protect you, right? And so in a child's mind, you're trying to figure out, how do I protect myself? And so you shift and form a new identity, the soldier, the protector, Mike. And it makes sense from a psychological, from the, again, I'm not a doctor, but just from the little bit of knowledge that I have, it makes sense that you would have somewhat of a schism inside yourself, where you would have this beautiful, fun, amazing girl who is hiding behind this tough, you know, hard soldier Mike, who's like, you ain't getting you ain't getting through here, excuse my silly little reenactment, but you know what I'm trying to get at. Like, you put up that, like, what? Yeah, nah, she's good back here. Don't come over here with that. And that becomes that inner child that they always talk about in psychology or whatever. That inner child is back there hurt, crying, alone in a corner, and just hoping that Mike is going to make everything okay, And it makes sense that you went into that. So if you could talk a little bit about how you pulled yourself, because you don't go by Mike anymore, right?
No.
And when did you stop going by Mike?
When I was 18.
Okay, so you started with Mike around 12, was it? or before that?
About 13.
About
13.
13. So you were in Mike, you were in another identity, a whole nother identity.
Well, Mike is when I was about 13, 14 when I really started learning how to play, because remember, like you said, I was still young. So I invented Mike when I was 8, 9, but I started to become Mike when I was about 12, 13. I
So
was so ashamed. I was embarrassed.
about what?
The whole molestation thing. And it was easier for me to pretend to be someone than have to deal with what really happened.
So it
Like,
makes sense that some people would experience trauma, something like this so severe that they don't even want to acknowledge it to their conscious mind and just go into another identity, right? Something that
yeah,
seems a little more safe. We do that.
yes,
We do that, maybe not to the extreme that you did, but I think sometimes people do that when they're picked on. You know what I mean? Or just some of the little things that you experience as a kid, like somebody's picking on you because of X, Y, and Z. So you decide, well, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna change myself and I'm gonna be the cool girl now. And I'm gonna. So we do that in small ways when we experience things, but with a situation like this, it can become unhealthy because of what you talked about with me. I don't know if we really got into it here yet, but how you became an abuser, so to speak, because within this is a common thing that happens when people don't deal with their abuse. They end up becoming the abuser. So in you becoming a man, what I got from your story was that you perceived that men were violent and hypersexual. And so that's kind of where you took that personality, that persona of Mike. He became what your perception of a man was. Am I saying that right? I don't want to put
no,
words.
no, yeah, you're right. That I didn't see, my brother wasn't violent physically. It was just sexual. But it was what I said. I thought being a man, that pretty much what you said, that's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to not have feelings, put everything to the side, sweep it under the rug pretty much, never talk about it again, act like it never occurred. But I was still hurt. And that's when I became abusive. Like you said, Mike was my alter ego. Mike was strong. Mike was fearless. Mike was angry. Mike could not be touched. And when I became Mike, because it was the hurt was still there, I became abusive.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I couldn't even love my mom. My mom is the best mom in the whole wide world. And I couldn't even love her. I would use her. I didn't trust her. Um, the only way I protected my sister was violence. I would not let nobody hurt my sister.
So
And
she
if you,
almost became like a proxy for yourself in a way.
yeah, because I refused to let anybody hurt her. So I protected her.
So
And
would you go back into the part where you said you began to come out of this? What was that transition like? You looked at your son. Were you still kind of in? Okay, so you said 18 is when you began to let go of Mike. Can you talk about that? Was that before your son was born, or was that?
yes, before I was 18 when I kind of let Mike go.
What was the shift that happened that said, "This is not me"?
Honestly, it was getting into the word. I started to read the Bible. I started to really allow God to intervene in my life.
Did you cry
I Did I call on that?
Yeah, did you like call
Yeah.
to God for help during that time, or was it something that just happened?
I called on God and I asked God to help me because I didn't like being the person that I had become, and it was getting worse because I was physically violent, in my relationships. I could not have a good friend and trust them. I didn't trust anybody. So I asked God to help me. And I gave up everything. I gave up Mike. I gave up the drinking, the weed smoking, the late night clubbing, the one night stands that occurred numerous of times. I gave that up. And when I was 20, I went to college, away from my family, and I got with my ex-boyfriend because I wanted to do the right thing. So I knew doing the right thing was being normal, was having a boyfriend. So I opened myself up.
Because you said being normal. So what did it feel like to you to try to be normal?
I still felt unnormal because it felt like wearing a pair of shoes that are too small, but you like them. It just didn't fit. So I tried. I tried to be that girlfriend. I tried to be that wifey, but it just didn't feel right. I just was not happy because I felt like I was being something or trying to be something that I wasn't. So I did cheat on him with a female, and I left him for that female. I abused her. I would jump on her and hit her a lot. I was verbally abusive to her, um, sexually abusive to her. Um, and that pattern lasts for at least 15 years. Um, I would hit females a lot. Um, I verbally abused them a lot.
Do you
Um,
think that had anything to do with, because I remember you saying earlier in this conversation that you were jumping on yourself inside and beating yourself up inside. Do you think that was manifesting in that situation? Like,
yeah, it was all building up.
yeah, like there was some self-hate
Mhm.
going on that was coming
Mhm.
out.
It was what I said, that I blamed me. I hated what happened to me. I hated that I couldn't hide this anymore. I hated that it had grown so big that I couldn't control it. Mike couldn't help me anymore. I had to deal with it. And that's when I after I left him, I took a moment to myself. I was about 27, 28 maybe. And that's when I fell into this deep depression. And I pushed everyone away from me. Um, my sister, good friends, everyone. And for about a month, I wouldn't get out of bed. I lost my job. I slept all day. I didn't eat. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't comb my hair. And when I laid there, all I could think about was how could I kill myself? What was a quick way to out me? But I knew somewhere God was talking to me because I didn't really want to do that. but I just didn't know a way out of this hurt, of this pain, this confusion. Only thing I could think of was to kill myself. But God kept talking to me, and I never acted on it. It was always just thoughts.
What were the, so you had the negative thoughts. What were the thoughts that were the God thoughts that were coming in? What were the positive thoughts?
That God is the Almighty and He can take this all away. I just have to let Him. Stop trying to figure it out on my own and just totally submit all of my hurt, all of my pain, just cast it upon God and let Him have it.
And so that was a journey too, right? Because I just want people to know and understand that, if you are seeking a way out of sexual dysfunction, whatever that may be, I'm not here to judge people's lifestyles or anything like that. But if you personally are feeling that you are going through some things that you're not happy with, and it's stemming from a situation that happened in your childhood, you owe it to yourself to get healing. That's how you reconcile with that child inside, is you do what you need to do to let the child know that it's okay and it's safe to be you again. So you can pull yourself back together. So I want people to understand that when you want help, if you're a spiritual person, you can call on God, you can call on the universe, Allah, whatever you think that energy is, and it will manifest in your life. But you have to be willing to take the first step. You have to want that inside yourself to be different. And one of the key things that you're saying here is you do have to sometimes pull back from the people who are currently, presently aiding and abetting you in your current dysfunction. And that can be challenging. So if you're thinking of doing something and going on a journey like this, I would definitely encourage you. And she has even said it herself, go seek help. There are programs out here if you don't have money and you don't have insurance. Go seek help. There's got to be at least one person in your life that you can trust, that you can go to and tell, I need help. Can you just be my accountability person? I'm gonna go see this therapist, or I'm gonna go do this. Can you just check in with me? Somebody that can just make sure that you're doing okay, because we definitely don't want to see anyone hurting themselves or falling off the deep end trying to get out of this. But if you can listen to her story, you can catch the key things that she's saying. First of all, you have to pray. You have to meditate. If you don't believe in God, meditate. Meditate, get inside yourself and call forth that healing. Because I truly believe that inside of us, if you think about it, if you get a cut, what happens? Your body begins to heal. We have the ability to heal, to self-heal. It's up to us as an individual to call forth that energy, that healing, creative energy, to heal our spirits, to heal our souls. And for some of us, that comes in the form of God. For others, that comes in the form of universal energy, which is God anyway. And for others, it comes from the God within, or the spirit within. So however you want to see or perceive that, this is earth, and everybody has their different ways, and you're welcome and entitled to that. If you're suffering from sexual dysfunction, any type of sexual trauma, we as a community of women, in particular Black women, we owe it to ourselves and the future generation to heal. There's a lot of stuff that was passed on from slavery. There was a lot of stuff that was passed on from captivity and all that dysfunction. Ladies and gentlemen who are here, I asked her to come and share this story because this story resonates with me. It resonates with, I'm sure, a lot of you. If it's not you personally, it's someone you know. There's been a lot of little bits and pieces, different levels of sexual dysfunction, that where you see these girls out here now popping and doing all this stuff and not valuing themselves, that is part of the hurt that we are experiencing as a community. So please be inspired by her story, that it wasn't easy and it didn't happen overnight, but you see at different stages in her life, she answered that inner calling to let go of that persona, that Mike. Then at another stage, she realized she wanted to let go of being an abuser. Then when she had a son, she realized that she wanted to become someone who could form an intimate bond with another being, that she wanted to love her son in a healthy way. So at each stage, she had to fight through something. And from what she's saying, from what I'm hearing, it wasn't easy. But know that if she could do it, you can do it.
And to know that you don't have to be that victim forever. It's unfortunate what may have happened to me or anybody else, but you deserve to love. You deserve to be treated in a good way. You deserve to have what we all know to be normal relationships with our children, and not being the victim anymore. I deserve happiness.
Yes, you
I
do.
am no longer a victim. I was a victim of a circumstance, but I'm no longer a victim of molestation anymore. I'm a healer, not a victim. And I deserve that.
So I think, listening to your story, I've heard it a couple times now because, I wanted to make sure that I really had an understanding of your, different aspects of your story before we brought it to the public. The thing that really like inspired me so much, because I have my own issues with, I didn't experience sexual trauma in the way that you did, but I did experience, exposure to porn at a very early age. I experienced some storytelling from family members that kind of, I feel like I was too young to really hear. So it created like a fear of men in me. Like I was very afraid of being a girl because, and I was kind of a little bit of a tomboy when I was young too, because I felt like that was a protection for me because I had heard all these stories, like, and then I had seen some porn and I was like, oh, that's what happened to women. Yikes. I don't want that to happen to me. So I did, make myself a little tougher. And I don't think we realize, like, in society, we're like anything goes, let people do what they want to do and all that. But we need to think as a community, how does that affect our children? And that's one of the things that I really, 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 really love about your story, because it's the fact that you woke up so quickly. That's that mother instinct that you couldn't get away from. That's that feminine instinct that came up in you and said, you're a mother. You have to take care of this child. You have to get better. That's the love inside of you.
Even though I did not know how to be a mother, I didn't know how to love my son. That breaking point was because I was guilty. I felt guilty. I didn't trust my mom. I didn't trust anybody with my son. Nobody. And it was guilt. I felt guilty for treating my son the way I did. When he looked at me and smiled, it crushed me, because that's when I realized he does not deserve it. He didn't ask for a damaged mother. He didn't ask to not be protected and loved and nurtured. He didn't ask for that. So the only way that I could be a good mother was to cure me. It's the only way.
So where are you now? As we're getting close to 8 o'clock. As we wrap this up, where are you now on your journey of healing? How are you feeling
Now
yourself, your
I
relationship?
am
How old
still
is your son,
involved.
by the way? Sorry, how old is your son? We never said that.
My son's 12 now.
Mhm.
Now he's 12. Now I am still heavy in the church. I teach my son the miracles, the love of God. I decided for me and my son to go to counseling, because along the way, I did crush his spirits, not meaning to, but I hurt his heart too. Out of my own anger, I did things and said things to him that I shouldn't have out of anger. So now me and my son goes to counseling together. We're learning to build a better bond, especially now that he's getting older and he's understanding and recognizing things a lot more than he did when he was 5 and I could get away with this stuff. So we stay in the church, we stay in counseling, and we handle things differently. You know, I tell him it's okay for us to be upset and be mad, but it's not okay for us to verbally abuse each other, say things that are hurtful, because once it's said, the damage is done. So we take a time out when we're angry so we won't say hurtful things. I'm learning to love me now. I'm learning to understand that I deserve love. I'm learning that I am capable of loving the right way. I am learning that I am not compromising myself for no one. I will not lower my standards for nobody. So I'm still continuing my journey, 44 years in. But I am so much better than I was yesterday, last week, last month, last year. Every day is a new journey for me. Every day is a new step of becoming a better person.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to ask you, how do you feel about your femininity now? How do you relate to your femininity now that you've been on this healing journey?
Now I am happy that I am a woman. I am glad that I'm a woman. I love my femininity. I'm still learning how to dress feminine, how to do things that women tend to do. I'm not on the nails and hair yet, but
I already told her. I already told her. I said, "Look, when you're ready to, jump on in, fully jump in. I can help you now."
I'm learning to hang up my boxers and put on my big girl panties.
You're not ready for that yet?
I'm learning.
You're learning. All right, I got you.
I'm learning.
And it's good, take your time getting there, be gentle with yourself. But one of the things I had to tell myself is that it is okay to be a woman. It is okay to be vulnerable in a healthy way. Like, that's what I connected with you on your story, because even though I was out here being a woman and dating and being with men, there was this thing inside of me that was still very afraid. And so I would fight with guys and argue and fuss with them. I don't need you. You get on out of here. And I would just constantly push men away. And some of them weren't that bad, but it was just this underlying fear that I could never allow myself to be vulnerable. And so I was telling my cousin, and some of you guys know me from following me and knowing me, a year ago, I had a totally different look about me. I had cut all my hair off. I was like a little 10 pounds heavier. And I was just getting to that point where I was like, I give up. I ain't got no man. I'm going to just get comfortable. And then something just clicked and was like, that's you being afraid. That's a comfort, because you're afraid to let anyone get close to you. Now you're about to give up, but you're sitting over here lonely. Mm-hmm. And so her story was even inspiring me. I was already on that journey, but it's like, okay, I need to go get some therapy to make sure, like, people should not shy away from therapy. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It's just like a checkup. Like, I feel like therapy is almost like a little bit of a checkup that you do with your doctor. You go in and you be like, oh, something hurt over here. And they look at it and maybe they see something and then they address it. That's what I think therapy should be in our community. It doesn't mean you have to be in therapy for 10 years, but maybe you go see a counselor for 3 months. Maybe you go to a group therapy session for, a couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? So you can just talk things out.
And using different vocabulary words.
Yeah.
I used to call myself handsome.
That's a handsome chick right there.
Yeah, I call myself handsome. I was a studsman. Now I say I'm beautiful. I'm pretty. I am a woman. I am not a man. I enjoy being a woman. I love being a woman. I'm not a man. No matter what I thought I could change, my anatomy never did.
And let me say this. I was doing the same thing recently. So it's not just about lifestyle choices or, sexuality in the sense of, am I going to be gay? Am I going to be straight? Am I going to be a man? Am I going to be a woman? And all those different identities that people are tapping into and being free with nowadays. It's not just about that. It's about being comfortable with who you are. I had to get comfortable with being a woman. And I've been working on that for, I would say, off and on for the past 10 years. But this past year and a half to 2 years, it really started to gel for me because I was afraid. I was scared. I wasn't valuing myself. So I was acting out in a way that I'm not going to get into the details here because I like to, ladies got to have some mystery. But, I was acting out in a way that even though I was afraid of intimacy, I was still craving intimacy. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you guys can put 2 and 2 together, that when you're acting from a place of fear, it's never going to result in anything healthy. That's something I would love for people to take away.
And I'm learning to find what I call a woman's worth. I'm learning to find my worth.
Yeah.
That I am worthy of love, that I am worthy of being respected. I am worthy of having a good husband, that I am worthy of being a wife in the way God intended it to be, that I am worthy of being a good mother. I'm going to make mistakes. There's no perfect mom, but I don't want it to be toxic. I want to forget a basketball practice, not forget to tell my son I love him. So I'm learning my worth. So in doing this, I am staying out of relationships with females and men. I am learning me. I am loving me. I'm liking me. That's where I am now. Learning to be a better mother for my son, because I have to train my son because he's going to be a man too. And I don't want my son to be like a lot of men, damaged, not knowing how to love a woman, hating women, not respecting women. I don't want my son to be that. So I have to show him by me changing what a mother is, what a woman is supposed to be. So he can be a good husband, a good father to his children, to his wife, and to himself. So that's where I'm at now.
We model behaviors for children. Our parents modeled behaviors for us. And there were certain models of behavior that were modeled for me that I picked up on that may have worked for my mom that did not work for me and have resulted in where I am now. Not that I'm necessarily down in the dumps, but I think I envisioned something to be different. I envisioned some things to be different.
Don't we all, girl?
Over here all pretty and alone. Like Jesus.
I want to mold him to be a good person, a good man. But I don't want to do it in my image. I give him the opportunity to express himself, to be who he is. When he gets disappointed, I tell him, don't take it to heart, because it just crushes him when he gets disappointed. And I tell him, you are going to endure a lot of disappointments in your life, but don't let it crush your spirit. You just pick yourself up and say, hey, these are the type of people I don't want in my life. And it's okay to feel what you feel. I tell him he always has the right to feel what he feels, but sometimes what we feel isn't always the truth. It's because we're in our feelings. We only see what we feel, not what's the truth sometimes. So I allow him to feel what he feels, but sometimes I have to correct his feelings. I don't take away what he feels, but I just correct him a little bit on what he feels. And I tell him, we're going to be disappointed. I said, when you get your first girlfriend, she's probably going to break your little heart because you're going to think you're in deep head over heels in love. But guess what? A year, 6 months, you'll find another girlfriend and you're going to think you're deeply in love with her too. So it's okay. It's a part of life.
You're teaching him resiliency.
But you don't let it break you.
Yeah,
you move on, you forgive, and you heal. That's all you can do.
And I'm going to let that be our final word, resiliency. That is what this is about. Healing is about becoming resilient. So what she's teaching her son is what she has learned over her experience and her journey is resiliency. We as a people are very resilient people. And in particular, I might even say that the women who have come down through American slavery are extremely resilient. So I want us out here today, whoever this message is for, whoever is reaching, whoever is touching, know that you have that in you. You have that fight in you. You can get up. You can dust yourself off. You might get disappointed, like she said. You might get knocked down, but you can get back up. I hope that this helps somebody out there. I know that this video is going to go up on Fly Nubian Queen at some point. So I want to say, if you haven't already, please please subscribe and share to flynubianqueen.com on Facebook, on YouTube. If you haven't already, please go to flynubianmoney.com. Get your money right. Fly Nubian Business. Start your business. And please support us by buying some of our gear at fnq.com. Thank you so much for joining me, Deena Jacobs, and Kie live here tonight. You can catch me every Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm always bringing topics like this, not as heavy sometimes, but I'm always bringing topics to the community, the queens in the Black community, of how we can elevate ourselves, how we can lift ourselves, how we can be the best that we individually as collectively can be. We need to continue to knock down the stigma around getting help. It's never too late to get help. That was something that my mother would say often before she passed away. I'm too old. I'm too old. You're never too old to deal with your demons. You're never too old to deal with your demons. And so I want And if you want to talk to me, we didn't get many questions tonight. I think it's because it aired on the wrong channel. But it will, as soon as we finish here and wrap up, it's going to pop up on my feed and you can watch it from the beginning because I see some people came in late. Thank you, each and every one of you who came in tonight. And thank you so much, my cousin. I appreciate you. I love you. And I think you are so brave. Like, I'm so inspired by you. I'm glad we reconnected. And I just feel like there's a book inside of you. I've told this many times. I feel like you can really reach a lot of people with your story. So I you all the love, all the support, all the money, everything you need in this world to keep going forward and growing. And I can't wait to meet your son. I love you.
I love you too,
girl.
so
much. All right. Thank you, everybody. And I love you guys too. Thank you for being here. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
on. I'm trying to end the video.
I know. I'm trying to get off.
Usually I can see it says in the video, but I can't find it yet. I guess they don't want us to leave.
They love us. They love us.